Right, so this video is going to be slightly different. I'm basically just going to sit here for like an hour and just tell you everything you need to know about breaking into data science and machine learning, completely raw, completely unfiltered. I'm not going to edit this video. I'm just going to speak, from these notes I've got here, just about everything I want to discuss. Like I said, it's going to be no animations, just me waffling for an hour, telling you exactly everything you need to know, all the steps you need to take, all the things you should do in order to, well, increase your chances of getting a job. Because getting a job is hard, and I'm no magician, but if you follow everything I'll tell you in this video, then your likelihood and chances of actually landing a role in data science or machine learning, I promise you, will increase. So implement all these things here, watch the hour-long video. If you are serious about becoming or want to becoming a data scientist or machine learning engineer and want to work in this field, then I promise you this hour is going to be well worth your time. So yeah, if you can't sit for an hour video about how to become a machine learning engineer or data scientist, I can't really help you much there, but I promise you it'll be worth your time. So the first thing I want to basically discuss is that it's just hard, right? People kind of beat around the bush sometimes and say, even I say, like, anyone can become a data scientist or work in machine learning. And yes, that is true, but it is difficult. And for loads of people, it's a lot harder than others, right? If you haven't got the right background, the right skill sets, if you have other responsibilities, there's so many things that play into it. And you got to think of data science and machine learning as probably one of the most hardest kind of areas to work in at the moment, right? If you think the machine learning engineer role, which is what I am currently, is the highest paid tech profession in the UK and probably the US, right? It pays more than software engineer, data scientist, data engineer, cloud, whatever, it's the highest paid profession, right? At least in tech. And the reason it has the average highest pay is because you need so many skills. You need to be able to code to software engineering standard. You've got to have really good statistics knowledge, maths knowledge, communication skills, and also have a really good depth understanding in machine learning, which is a massive subject area, right? So you have to know so many different things, and that's why it's so hard, okay? Because you can't just magically become one in a year. I'm being truthful. You can't, unless you have the correct background. And for most people, it'll take them, becoming a software engineer first or a data analyst, then transitioning slowly to data science and then slowly to machine learning engineer. It's a long journey and it's difficult, and you have to put in a lot of time outside of hours, right? If you want to become a lawyer, it is, I would say it's harder because you have more exams, but it's still the similar thing, right? Just because machine learning and data science are a lot newer professions does not mean you can't be qualified to do them, right? You have to go through the reps, put in the steps. Yes, there's no formal process like there is for lawyers, certain banking professions, actuaries, jobs like that. But in most cases, machine learning engineer pays similar, than some of these roles. And so it's foolish to think that you can just get into this industry without actually putting the time in and going through, I say hardships is a kind of a strong word, but, putting in that extra time outside of your normal responsibilities, working on your weekends, studying after work. These are things you have to do, and it's difficult. But if you're willing to go through that hard work and put in the extra time and commit to it over the long term, then you will get somewhere, right? You will eventually get the role, because you can only lose if you give up, right? So even if it takes you 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to get to the final job you want to be, I think that's well worth it, because I rather spend 5 years of studying and working on something that, yes, I may get a job only 5 years later, but then I have a job I really like. And careers last decades, right? People work into the 60s now, like even late 60s as we get older, I'm sure. And sacrificing a few years of your life for a career you really like, pays well, you enjoy, is flexible, I think it's worth it. But it will be hard, and that's just being honest about it. So if you don't like maths, you don't like coding, don't like stats, I don't think a career in this area is for you, just because you won't stick it out in order to see like the fruits of your labor long term. Okay, so I just want to reiterate that point. So it's not for everyone, but I do think anyone can become a data scientist given enough time, learnings, and just applying the right processes. But it is difficult. So with that in kind of wrapped up, the next point I've got here on my list is education. So I get asked lots of questions in my comments about, can I become a data scientist or machine learning engineer if I have this background or this background? The point still stands. I just said like a minute ago, anyone can work in this profession. Obviously, some backgrounds are seen more favorably than others. So if we're going to be brutally honest, if you don't want to work in research, which requires a PhD, kind of your best thing you should do, you have a choice, you should do a master's. And ideally, that master's should be either in maths, computer science, statistics, or a combination of those three. There's other subjects like engineering, physics, chemistry, the sciences, and other engineering like professions or disciplines will also help. But the main three are maths, stats, and computer science. And ideally, you want to go to a master's level. Now, that's not to say that's the only way you can break into this industry. For example, I have a degree in physics and I work as a machine learning engineer. So it's not kind of, either or. It's more that's the ideal profile and that's where you get your ideal skills. Now, with all that in mind, that's not to say you can't become a data scientist or machine learning engineer if you don't have a master's in maths, okay? There's so many people I've worked with who have bachelor's degrees in chemistry, or there's even a guy in my old company who had a degree in English, and he was a phenomenal data scientist, right? It just took him a lot longer to become one because he had to upskill himself more, do more projects, and he eventually became a data scientist, like in late 20s, early 30s. Whereas if you work, if you do the masters in maths or computer science, you're more likely to become one in like your mid 20s or straight out of university, for example. So your horizon just changes, which is what I'm saying, like anyone can become one. It's just, the ideal case. Now, you don't necessarily need to do a master's, but a master's does help. So many job profiles I've seen say like they would rather have a master's degree. Again, it doesn't matter, like for most cases, there's so many people who have bachelors and are fantastic, they're fantastic at their job, and they're terrific. So it's not black or white, but like I said, but those are the ideal cases. Another thing I kind of got written down here is the idea of that PhDs. I've done a kind of a newsletter edition recently about whether a PhD is needed for machine learning, and it's not. It's only really needed if you want to do research, and that's like a really small minority of roles. So roles like a research labs or a research scientist position where you're literally researching machine learning, those are the only jobs where you need a PhD for. The rest of the jobs are in industry or in production where you're working on like business problems, and for that you don't need a PhD. And those roles are pretty much the majority of jobs. So you do not need a PhD. If you want to do a PhD, go for it, but it's not a prerequisite needed to work in this industry. But again, if you really want to do one, it interests you and you're excited about it, then do it. It's obviously, there's nothing I'm saying here. It's like, this is what you should do. I'm just giving you the general kind of guidelines, and obviously everyone's situation is different. So I offer like one-to-one calls if you want more like specific tailoring advice to your situation, because like I said, there's like blanket statements I'm making here, and they don't apply to everyone, and everyone's unique. So if you want more advice, I have a link in the description if you want to have more guidance on your personal situation. But if you want to do a PhD purely because you want to break into the industry, then I don't recommend it, because you're much better off just doing a master's and then try and find an internship, and progress from there. Okay, so in a nutshell, don't do a PhD unless you really want to do a PhD, because it's really not worth it. Now, the next thing I've got here is about the idea of a master's in data science or machine learning. So I've seen these pop up a lot. Now, I see loads of people take masters in these subjects. Now, in my opinion, I do not think you should take a master's in data science or machine learning unless it's at a top university, like Cambridge, Oxford, UCL offer a great course, or the ones in America like Harvard, Stanford, because they're top institutions and they'll teach you, well, it's good to have those names, right? I think if you do like a data science master's at like a lower tier university, I don't think that's a good idea. I think you're better off doing something like master in maths, stats, or computer science, like I said, and then specialize within those modules, machine learning, AI, doing a project that's based on machine learning. That's a much better approach, because to be honest, a lot of these universities that offer these masters in data science, I don't think they're that great programs. I think you're much better off, like I said, doing a master's in something else, and then in your master's specializing or taking modules related to machine learning. That's a much better approach. Unless you go somewhere like UCL, which have a really good link with DeepMind, they have a fantastic machine learning course that's like well-renowned. Same with other universities like Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial, and also the top Ivy League schools in America as well. That's when I think it's worth it, because you have name, the name does carry weight, as much as I hate to say, because it's just how the world works nowadays, and it still works like this. So don't do a master in data science. Much better off doing a master's in one of those subjects that are listed and specializing in one of those areas. And just to summarize this education part, Yes, there's ideal backgrounds, like I said, but it really doesn't matter. You can get into this field like no matter what background you have. You just have to go through certain steps, which we'll discuss kind of later. But don't let your background or your educational background be something that decides whether yes you'll become a data scientist or machine learning engineer or not. Yeah. So if you really want to become one and it's something you're interested in and you're passionate about, do not let this affect you. But have the realistic expectation that it will be harder for you than people who have certain backgrounds in the STEM subjects, like I mentioned. That's just the brutal truth. That is just the stats. If you look online, that's what you'll find. But it's a trend, right? It's not the be all and end all. It's just a general kind of blanket statement, like I said. But there's always exceptions to the rule. And like I said, you can become one if you don't have the correct background. It'll just take you longer. Right, so now after education, it's time to upskilling. So chances are no degree, maybe if you do like a master's in machine learning, even though I just said don't do one, will prepare you like properly for a job in these fields, yeah? Because they're quite new, you're not going to learn all the right stuff in your degree because your degree is quite theoretical and a lot of these jobs are more hands-on, practical based. So in terms of upskilling, these are kind of the general skills you need if you want to land an entry-level position working in machine learning. So you should learn Python. Do not learn R. You do not need to know R. People say this. People make comments like, "Oh, yeah, but you're hating on R." I promise you, sorry, no one uses R in industry. They don't. They really, really don't. Learn Python. Forget about R. R's becoming less and less popular as well as time goes on in the field. So yeah, just learn Python. Don't even touch R. I haven't used it ever, and I don't see when I'm going to use it going forward, to be honest. Then also learn SQL. I'm sure you know this. SQL, yeah, Python and SQL. Literally the only two languages you need to know. I have got this far in my career just knowing Python and SQL. That's all you need to know. People may say like, oh yeah, you could go for C++. Yes, there's scenarios where you may need more high efficient computing. Like where I work now, we use a bit of Rust as well because we need like the more compute efficiency. But this is like a rare case, yeah. So learn Python and SQL. That's all you need to know. Don't go looking at other languages. Just learn those two. That's all you need to know for the beginning. As you get on your career, you can learn more things, specialize, etc. But at the beginning, you don't need to worry about that. Yeah, just always focus on the next step ahead. Don't try and think too far ahead because it make you anxious and you overthink things. Yeah, so just go bit by bit, and eventually you'll get to where you want to go. But just focus on the next step or few steps, not the next 10 steps. Right, so after you've learned Python and SQL, you want to learn some machine learning. So someone like me who had a background in physics, I didn't need to know the required maths because I already had the knowledge in linear algebra, statistics, and calculus. You may not, but I reckon a majority of people who want to go into data science and machine learning probably have a background in STEM. If you don't, then you're going to have to invest some time learning those required skills in maths and stats. It's just how it is. Again, it'll take you time, several months, but you need to learn the foundational mathematical knowledge before you move on to the actual machine learning theory part. So in terms of machine learning theory, there's literally one course I recommend you take, and that's Andrew Ng's Machine Learning Specialization. That's the only course you need to take on machine learning theory. That's it. That's the only course I've ever taken in my life. I have taken, I've taken a subsequent course and I've done a few others on like coding. But in terms of actual machine learning courses, that's literally the only course I've ever taken. And that's all you need to take. I have kind of researched online and looked at textbooks and things like that. But in terms of an end-to-end course, that's the only one I've done. So take that one course to learn machine learning theory. That's, like I said, all you need to do. Don't overcomplicate it, just take it. I say it all the time, just take one course and that's all you need to know. If you're taking several courses on the same subject, you are doing something wrong. You're procrastinating, right? So don't waste your time taking a machine learning course and taking another machine learning course. What's the point? You're going to learn the same thing. Maybe you learn something a little bit different, whatever. But it's not worth your time. You're much better taking a course and immediately implementing things, which we'll get onto. But take a course, move on to the next thing. Take a course, move on to the next thing. But don't take a course on the same subject area. You can also do some research and look around and see things and look at other things like increase your knowledge. So, for example, if I'm trying to learn neural networks, I may take Andrew Ng's course on the neural network section, but I may do some cross-referencing on Google just to get a wider picture of the subject. I'm still only taking that one course. So again, take one course on each of these areas. On the maths, have one textbook. On the Python and SQL, take one course. Machine learning, take this one course, and that's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Take the one course and then move on to implementing things, building your knowledge, etc. Now, the next thing over here, which is really, really important, and I think a lot of people really underrate it, and I think it's the biggest leverage thing you can do for your career. I promise you, if you do this one thing consistently for a few months, the amount of benefits you'll get in your professional life will be ginormous. But most people don't do it, and that's the idea of documenting your learning. And I know people may roll their eyes and say, well, I can't do it. Yes, you can. Like, just don't make excuses for it. You're just going to have to do it. I think blogging about everything I've learned across my whole career has been the biggest leverage I've ever had. I blog on Medium. If you look at my old articles, I've written over 200 articles on Medium at this current point in time. And I would say at least 150 of those have been purely technical articles. Purely technical. I've written subject areas on Bayesian regression, probability distributions, Markov chains, neural networks, system design, data structures and algorithms. I've literally written on so many blogs, and they're not for anyone. They're just for me. I only wrote these things purely for myself, not for no one else. And they were purely there for me to learn, and learn by teaching and explaining concepts. It was a great way for me to document my learning. Now, if anyone wants to employ me or look through my knowledge, I literally have documented evidence that I know these things because I have live blog posts on them that you can go and see. And that leverage is ginormous because one, solidifies your understanding, two, shows you're very interested in the field, and three, it looks great for recruiters or interviewers. It just looks good, yeah? No matter how you want to spin it, it looks impressive and it looks like you're willing to go the extra mile. So honestly, document your learning, even if it's just on LinkedIn, where you could say something like, recently I learned about activation function neural networks. I didn't realize they're needed because they break the linearity in neural networks, which makes a neural network different from linear regression, right? That's a really simple example I gave you there, but it goes to show you how, just like writing these things out, even if you're not trying to actually get them to go viral or do anything with them, they're just for yourself. But people like seeing you, document. People like want to interact with those sort of things. They find it interesting. So I beg you to document your learning. I know most of you watching this video won't, and that's what's great about it, because if you don't do it, then people like me who do it and other people who document their learnings have the advantage of it, right? I mean, I'll give you another example. So I have a coaching client I work with at the moment, and I've really pushed him to start documenting and just creating content on LinkedIn about AI, Gen AI, just things he's interested in, right? And I said to him, don't do it for anyone, do it for yourself, just write things, don't expect anything, right? Always focus on the inputs, never the outputs. And after posting for like 2-3 weeks, he got a recruiter in his direct messages asking him if he wants to apply for a job. Now, the job wasn't something that he wanted, but the point is there. It's the confidence boost. People are now approaching you for jobs. This whole thing with networking and reaching out to people, I do get it, but I don't like it. I'd rather people come to me, yeah? I mean, well, why would you not? You're basically being lazy, but you're getting people to come to you because you're putting stuff out there, and then people approach you for opportunities, then vice versa. That's a much better way to go about things because you're learning, you're becoming more well-known, like developing a personal brand. I know people hate that, but it really is really important. And then you're getting opportunities attracted to you. So it's a win-win as opposed to you going to other people. Just people are scared to do it. But I promise you, no one cares about your content. No one cares about my content. Half of the people I work with have no idea I've got a YouTube channel. If you're watching this, well, you found it. But my point is, so many people I've worked with, so many people I interact with have zero clue I have a YouTube channel. Even though I post consistently, even though I post on so much social media, people still don't know because people don't care, and you're literally a drop in the ocean. So I can't be this dead cow enough. Is that a saying? I don't know. That documenting your learning and putting it out there is so valuable, more than you know. Literally way more than you know. It was when I started it, I didn't realize how many opportunities you'll bring me, and so just start. I'm begging you. If you want help starting, I'm happy to help you. but you have to commit to it. That's all I ask. I'm happy to help people with content and documenting their learning in public, doing blog posts, making videos. I'm more than happy to help people, but you have to commit to it, because I don't want to, invest time in people and then they say like, oh, I need to do this. No, you start straight away. I can help you. I can guide you. I can be accountable for you, right? If you want to take it seriously and document in public, then I'm happy to be your accountability buddy on this and force you to do it no matter what every week. That's something if anything, I'll do for free. Like, I'm not going to charge you anything. Just as long as you do it, then I'm happy to work with you on it. So let me know. There's a link in the description if you want to book a call in with me, or just comment and we can discuss it if you really want to take documenting your learning and building content seriously. Cool. So the last point I've got on upskilling is, after you've gone through the courses, after you start documenting in public, this is the kind of crucial thing, is that don't rush as well. So when you are doing this, learning is a long game, right? Learning process takes a while. There's specific university degrees dedicated to maths, right? So you can't expect to learn the maths stuff for machine learning if you have no prerequisite understanding in a few weeks. It's just not going to happen. You gotta go through the process slowly, go through the motions, make sure you learn things, solidify the information, write about it online so you really get it, hitting home in your head, and just take your time. If people's positions are always different. If you're working a job and you have money coming in and you can sustain yourself, you don't need to rush out of it, right? Learning these things will take a year if you want to do it properly. I'm just being truthful. If you want to learn Python, SQL, the math skills, and machine learning knowledge, 6 months if you're really good, but that's kind of the minimum time frame you're looking at. So it'll take a while. So go through it slowly, make sure you understand it, don't rush, and over time will compound, it'll sink in. That's what I'm going to say. The next point I've got here is learn the basics. So I see a lot of people I speak to who want to break into the industry focus so much on, I want to work in reinforcement learning, I want to work in computer vision, I want to work in Gen AI. Not going to say no you don't, but at least not for now. For now, all you want to do is focus on the fundamentals. Focus on regression algorithms, classification algorithms, decision trees, gradient boosted trees, random forests, a bit of neural networks, gradient descent, like cross-validation, all the fundamentals you need as a data scientist or machine learning engineer. That's what you want to focus on. You don't want to learn reinforcement learning. You don't need to. You don't need to know it for most entry-level positions. Computer vision, NLP, Gen AI, these are not needed for the majority, all right, the majority of entry-level positions. Unless you really want to specialize on those areas, everyone's situation is different, like I said. So, if you've done a PhD in computer vision, then obviously go and work in computer vision. I'm not saying that. But if you're someone who's graduated, like me, with a master's in physics, maths, stats, you're much better off just going and learning the fundamentals and trying to get a job where you just work the fundamentals. Don't try to get this job at a top tech company where you're doing LLM research. You can try, but they're very far and few between, and also they're so competitive. You might not get into it, right? You're much better off targeting the companies where they're just a normal company who have normal data scientists and start your career from there. So avoid all this flashy and shiny object syndrome you may have with certain roles. Just in the beginning, we'll get onto this, is that don't worry too much about where you start. The main thing is at the beginning, when you're upskilling, is learn the fundamentals and try and get a job in a company, just any company, literally any company, from where you would apply some machine learning and data science. That's it. I mean, I'll speak more about this in a second, but that's kind of what you want to do, right? Avoid the hype, avoid all this Gen AI hype. You don't need to know Gen AI. I'm telling you now, you really, really, really don't. Obviously, you should know how to use ChatGPT, but you don't need to understand how LLMs work under the hood for now, right? I know it's exciting and all this, but you don't need to know it right at the beginning of your career. It's very much a specialism you develop over the course of your career. But like I said, use them for productivity, but don't worry too much about it. Stick with the fundamentals at the beginning, and that's what you need to know and upskill in right at the start of your career. Right, so now we're moving on to the application phase. So kind of while I was hinting, let's just carry on the previous point when it comes to applications. Don't be picky. That's kind of my main thing here. I see loads of people I've mentored and had coaching calls with who say like, oh, I really want to work in this, I said it a few times, computer vision. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And you should have goal in mind of what industry you want to work in or what field. But you're going to find it very hard, or you're going to limit your kind of search if you just want to go for computer vision companies. Because how many companies really use computer vision, and how many companies are going to hire someone who has no real computer vision experience? Unless you've got a PhD or you've done some other work, which is a different case. And like I said, everyone's different. The majority of cases, you're not going to be very good at computer vision or have real experience in computer vision. So most companies won't hire you. I'm being serious. Like, don't like you're kind of thinking this goes back to my other point. It's hard, right? People think it's easier. Like, you do one project using YOLO, computer vision model, and you think you can get a job. You're not going to get a job like that way. It's just not going to happen. It's something you develop over time. So at the beginning, just don't be picky. Don't also just target like top companies like Meta, Google, top research funds, so like quant funds like Jane Street, Citadel. Like, apply for them, but just realize you're very unlikely to get in because they're so competitive. And the people who go for these top tech companies normally have been trying to get there from the beginning of when they started university. These people have been trying to get that job from their first year of their degree. A lot of people are not like that, to be honest. And particularly if you're looking for a career switch or you just graduated, you're not going to get a job in those companies realistically. This is the same with me. I don't think I'm good enough to get a job at one of those companies, to be honest. But I'm fine, and I totally accept that because I'm kind of playing the long game. If I want to get to those companies, I realized I had to take my time to get there. If you go back to my scenario, I started off with my first data science job at a smallish insurance company here in the UK. Then after there for a year, I moved to work at another company, which is more of a tech company, where I became a data scientist and I learned more software engineering skills, and I learned more, like a specialism within the field in time series and optimization. But my first job, it was purely just building supervised learning models, learning really good statistics because I worked really closely with actuaries, and I gained a really good fundamental understanding behind how to apply machine learning in practice. And then in my second job, that's when I learned more software engineering. I specialized in 2 domains, which we'll get onto as well in terms of career progress. And then after being there for 2 and a bit years, I then moved to become a machine learning engineer, where I'm now at Deliveroo, which is a lot more of a well-known, wider company, right? So you can see every step I've taken, not one company is better than the other, each company is different, but in terms of brand name and brand recognition, Deliveroo, where I'm currently at, has the highest kind of well-knownness, you can argue, across the world. So you see, in my scenario, I've slowly built my way up. And this is what I'm trying to say to you, is like, don't be too picky at the beginning. Your main goal and your first job is just to get your foot in the door and get the experience working as a data scientist or machine learning engineer. Really doesn't matter where it is. Obviously within reason, like make sure it's a place you want to work at. You want to work in a certain city. It pays you enough to live. These are the important things. But in terms of the job itself, don't worry too much about it. Don't worry if it's a small company that many people haven't heard of and it's not Facebook. Yeah. Like don't worry about those things because careers are long. You can eventually get to work at these big companies if you go about it the right way, and that's all that matters. So play a long game. Don't think so much like if I don't get into this company, I'm a failure. That's not the scenario. You slowly build yourself up. So when you're first applying for jobs, don't be picky. Apply for jobs you would do, but don't think just because it's not a well-known company or they don't pay you 100k a year that it's not a good role, because I promise you it's fine. And people move around a lot. People move around every 1, 2, 3 years. So you can eventually build your way up to one of those bigger companies if that's what you want. But at the beginning, don't worry too much about it. And hopefully that releases some pressure off you. Now, when it comes to applications, there's obviously a few things you need to do. Have a really good CV and resume. I've got a whole video about how to do a CV and resume. I'm not going to go through everything here, but the main things I'd say is use LaTeX. Don't use Microsoft Word, whatever you do. They just don't. Resumes in Microsoft Word look awful. I'm just going to say it. They look terrible. So use LaTeX. Particularly most people in the field have PhDs, masters, so they'll really appreciate you making it in LaTeX because it just looks nicer and it's that familiarity thing. Also, make it a page. People haven't got time to read 2 pages. No one cares that much, I'm telling you, because if you can't, particularly depending where you are in your career, right? If you've worked for 15 years, a bit different, but if you're fresh out of university, if you can't condense all the relevant information for a job in 1 page, you're doing something wrong. I know people say like, oh, it's so hard, it's difficult to make everything at 1 page, but it's just like I said, if you have to if you're writing more than a page, then you're adding a lot of irrelevant information in your CV. You only want to add things that are directly important to the role you're applying for, and that's it. So you've got to just be brutal and think: is every sentence I'm adding in here adding to my profile? If it's not, remove it. When it comes to the general steps, do not list the 6 programming languages, because I promise you probably don't. I'm being sarcastic, but like majority of people do not know Python, SQL, C++, Rust, Go, and assembly. Yeah, like you don't really. You may have done it before in the past, but the way I like to think about it, only say you're proficient in a language if you feel comfortable answering a leak code problem on it. If you don't feel comfortable answering leak code problems in that language, then I would not say you know that language. This is why I say I only know Python and SQL, because those are the only 2 languages I feel very comfortable in. So when it comes to languages, just say you're proficient or familiar with. Do not put a star rating. Do not say you're advanced. Do not say you're intermediate, because these are arbitrary figures and they mean nothing. Just say you're proficient in the languages you feel comfortable answering a leak code problem in, and familiar with the languages that you've done in the past, but haven't brushed up on them in a while. So personally, I'm quite proficient in Python and SQL, and I'm familiar in Fortran and LabVIEW. Those are my 2 languages. That's all I say. I don't overcomplicate it. That's all you need to do. And don't put star ratings, and don't say you're advanced. Just avoid that. Then when it comes to listing your skills, do not list packages like NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, scikit-learn. Just don't. If you're applying for a job in data science, machine learning, and you have to explicitly tell me that you know NumPy, then I think, what's going on here, right? I'm assuming you know them. If you're doing something like TensorFlow or PyTorch, it's a bit different, because they're a lot more specialized, and they're only, the libraries are used for specific use cases. So those are okay to add in my opinion. It's the ones that literally every single data professional uses that you don't need to add in, because like I said, I'm assuming you know them. As someone looking at your CV, I'm assuming you know NumPy. I'm assuming you know Pandas. I know you know scikit-learn. You don't need to list them, okay? So avoid that. Then when it comes to your experience, there's one thing, I've actually written a newsletter about it. When you're writing the impact you've had at a company of the work you've done, make sure you use quantitative numbers. An example I gave in my newsletter was, let's say I see this a lot, and I see people say, oh, I migrated a database to improve efficiency of our pipelines. Like that's a terrible example. That's a terrible thing to put in, because what did you migrate? What database did you use? How much did you improve efficiency by? These are all just like vague statements that don't really mean anything. So how do I know your migration of your database was better than the migration of some other guy's database? How am I meant to know that? A better example would be, off the top of my head, would be something like migrated the customer database from PostgreSQL to Redis to improve model inference time by 40%, which it estimates to reduce customer churn rates, saving us roughly £100,000 per year. You see what I mean? Like I'm from migrating the database to improve efficiency, I've gone through the actual database we used. The very specific problem was a customer database. I used exact metrics, like 40%, and the financial savings, like £100,000. I appreciate that's a hypothetical scenario, and like obviously you can't do that for every single bit of work you've done. But the main thing I want to drive home here is, in your experience section, just please add some information about the financial metrics or the impact or some quantitative numbers of the things you've done. That's the main thing. It has to be quantitative. And you may say, oh yeah, but I don't know the numbers. There is numbers for everything. So no matter if it's back of the envelope, it doesn't matter. As long as you have rough figures, and those figures, you can justify them, that's fine. No one in your interview is going to grill you on those numbers and be like, oh, exactly where does this number come from? I mean, they may ask you a question, but you'd say like, yeah, given it was this, the rough magnitude of order is like hundreds of thousands of pounds. You don't need to be super spot on. Obviously, don't say you're saving the company £1 billion, because that's just a flat out lie. But as long as you can justify it and the number sounds sensible, then that's fine, right? You're providing figures and you're estimating them. You're not saying this is definitely what it was. But if you say things like it's estimated to be this, it's predicted to be this, you're not lying, you're just giving like a rough value, like I said. And as long as it sounds reasonable, then you're okay. And I promise you, every bit of work you've done, there is impact measures that you can get. You just got to go out there and find them. because people aren't just going to give you these things. You have to go out your way to find out exactly what work you've done and how it influenced the business. So that's really important. Another thing with your CV is that make sure it just everything you add in is relevant. So what I mean by that is, if you go back to that example of migrating a database, if you migrated 2 databases, don't have both examples in there. Just choose the one that has more impact. So let's say you migrated a customer database and you also migrated an order database. You don't need to put both those in because they're both showing you the same skill set. They're both showing you know how to migrate databases. So you're better off adding something in like, I built a machine learning model that saved the company £1 million, right? You're better off using a completely different kind of skill set that you used in your work to show that. That's kind of what you want to do. You have variety in the skill sets you've done. You don't want to show the same thing twice or say the same thing twice, even if it's a different project, by showing the same skill set. I hope that makes sense. So now we get on to projects. After we've done the CV and resume, or at least we've made it clean, you also want to have projects on your resume. And I get this question all the time, as in what projects should I do? And I hate this question because, not in a mean way, because it's like people expect me to give them literally a list of projects that if you do these exact ones you should do to get a job. I just don't have that list, and to be honest, that's a bad way of going about it. What I recommend for people is that you want to have like 3 to 4 or 5 projects that will take you about a day to complete. So 1 to 2 days on a range of models like neural networks, gradient booster trees, classification, regression, just a range of models projects using a range of models that you can upload on your GitHub, because that's kind of teach you like the baseline of how to build models, like how to do feature engineering, how to source data, how to do model training, how to do validation, how to like showcase your results, doing plots, all these things. It would teach you that process, like just doing it loads of times and using a range of models, so you get that experience. And it'll also allow you to populate your GitHub page, because having your GitHub is kind of like your portfolio. At least that's like the level 1 portfolio, I call it. That's a baseline portfolio you should have. So having those range of projects will make your GitHub look populated, and having a populated GitHub just looks good, right? I think loads of people think you need to do loads of commits on GitHub. You don't need to do that, but your GitHub should look presentable. Obviously, don't make it full of memes, GIFs and have so much stuff listed on it. Just make it clean, simple, use mine for inspiration, and just have a few repos there of your projects. So that's what I recommend. Just do 3 to 4 to 5 projects, post them on your GitHub. Don't spend too long on these projects. Like I said, 1 or 2 days. Post them on your GitHub so your GitHub looks populated. Make your GitHub look nice. Literally, all you need to do is have a basic about me section. Add a few links, add a few your LinkedIn, things like that. Don't have so many languages, all these like weird stats, a GIF. Just don't have these things on your GitHub. It should just be clean, simple, profile picture, location, just all the basics, right? That's all you need to do, and have a few projects to make it look like it's populated. Because if someone clicks on your GitHub profile, they want to see that this person is taking their data science, machine learning career or learning seriously. They're documenting it, they're adding it to GitHub, they care about their professional kind of profiles online. That's what you want, and that's what having a GitHub and having these projects will do. Now, after you've uploaded these projects to GitHub and you've done these basic projects, this is where you really want to kind of show off your skills. So what you want to do is, after you've done those 3 to 4 to 5 simple projects, you then want to choose a project of sufficient difficulty that will take you around a month or 2 to complete. Now, this project should be very specific and unique to you. Let me give you an example. So I'm sure this person won't mind. In my old company, we were recruiting a data scientist who specialized in optimization. And there was a guy who's got the job now who applied. The reason he got the job, one of the main reasons he got the job, is that he was a big fan of fantasy football, NFL. And in his spare time, he did a lot of this analysis, and he created his own optimization engine to better select players for the NFL fantasy football. And this is something he did not because he was doing it purely to get a job, but he was interested in this. It's his hobby, the NFL, and he essentially was just interested in how to better allocate his players, and that's how he built his own optimization engine to do it. And this is a really good example of a project because, 1, it's unique. I haven't heard of anyone doing it. 2, it's personal to him. So you can tell the story about why he's doing it, how he's using it. It's personal, it's interesting. You can, like I said, storytelling. And 3, like I said, it's ongoing. It's a project he's worked on over time. It's of sufficient quality, and like I said, it's interesting, and it's clearly he likes that area of data science and machine learning optimization. So it's directly relevant for the role we were hiring. Now, what I'm saying is, this is kind of the approach you should take. You should take the approach where you want to create a project that's personal to you and that interests you. And this is something I can't really help you with. I mean, I can jump on a call with you if you want to, and we can explore things you like. But you're much better off just doing this yourself. You don't really need my help to do it. What I would say is literally sit down, write everything you're interested in outside of work, and then think of how you can use machine learning to solve some of these problems, or how you can use machine learning to help you with them. And you kind of want to pick something where you think you can't do, right? Something that you think, I don't think I can do that project, or at least I don't think I can use machine learning in that way. That's the exact project you should do, because it'll force you to figure things out, it'll force you to learn, and it will just develop your skills so much more. And like I said, you want to pick something where you can't complete it within a week. A month is kind of the minimum you want, maybe working on it like an hour or 2 per day. Obviously, it's flexible, but something that'll take you a decent chunk of time to do, and it'll take you a while to do, and it is of sufficient difficulty that you are intimidated by it. That's the best way you're going to learn and grow. Now, for example, if we go, let's say me as a case, if I was going to build a project, there'd be a few things I'd do. So like I said, I'll list all the things I'm interested in outside of work. So I play a lot of hockey, and I'm sure I can go onto the hockey website, and so let's say before every single game week and match day, I could do a prediction model just to predict the number of goals each team will score, therefore predict which team will win that match using previous stats. This is something that probably no one's done, and it's unique to me. It's like something I enjoy doing on the side. I can apply machine learning to it. I can even deploy it, right? And before each match day, before each game week, I can launch a website and say these are the predicted scores for these games. And that's something that no one else has done. It's unique. And even if the model is like a regular supervised learning model, it will force me to get the data from this online website, build a model, launch it, deploy it on some sort of cloud system so it generates predictions in live time. It trains from the data going in at the end of each game week. Do you see what I mean? This is like a big scope problem that it's not just about working in a Jupyter notebook. It's forcing me to really solve a real world problem, or at least apply it to a problem I'm interested in. That's kind of scale you want. And you don't have to deploy things. This is what people say to me, that I don't need to know AWS. You don't need to, but if the problem you're working on, like my hockey example I just gave you, where I'm trying to predict scores and then make that live to people to view, that's something I need to deploy. But the guy who's working at my old company, where he was just building an optimization engine to predict NFL allocations, for that he doesn't need to deploy it because it's personal to him. He just needs to run it locally. So deploying things is not a deal breaker whatsoever. So don't worry too much about it. Whatever you do, do not take those AWS certifications. You don't need them unless you want to become a cloud engineer. You're much better off just actually doing things in the cloud as opposed to taking all these certifications. I'm actually quite anti-courses in general, as in they're good things to learn, but I think people think they're going to get them a job nowadays, which they're not. It's not, 5 years ago, courses make a difference, but now courses are just there to learn. I had to just restart my camera because it overheated and it turned off. So I told you this would be raw, so we're going to keep this in. So where were we? Yeah, we're discussing certificates. Yeah, certifications nowadays, you don't need them. Don't add them in your CV. No one really cares about them as much as they used to. They're not that important. Use them to learn, but they're definitely not going to be an edge over you getting a job over someone else. You're much better off having these projects like I listed, and a project that's like personal to you, that's like really going to wow people. You can storytell, you can explain why you've done it and why it was interesting for you. Cool. Now we're on to the next part, which I've got here, is portfolio. So we already mentioned your GitHub, so make your GitHub look nice, populate it with a few projects. You should also make your LinkedIn profile look really good. I'm surprised that people spend way more time on their Instagram than their LinkedIn profile. Your Instagram, no one cares about it. Right? If you have 300 followers, you're not an influencer, why would you spend so much time on your Instagram? You're much better off spending that time on your Instagram profile, on your LinkedIn profile, because the ROI in terms of well, your professional life, even personal life, would be so much bigger if you spend that same time focusing on your LinkedIn profile. And it mind boggles me, right? I don't understand why people are like this, but and I also don't think I'm wrong on this. I think focusing more on your LinkedIn profile is such a better thing for your life than focusing on your Instagram, because unless you're an influencer, you use Instagram for business, which I guess some people do. Majority of us don't, which is there to take pictures of our lives and show our best selves, right? Which is fine. But like I said, if you focus that energy on actually your LinkedIn profile, which will bring more opportunities to you than your Instagram, then you're in a much better spot. So with your LinkedIn profile, just have a good photo, have a banner. Most people don't even have a banner for some reason. You can be in a skyline of London, for example, but having a banner makes a big difference because most people don't have it. Have everything, have all your experience there. Don't write paragraphs about yourself or paragraphs on like summary pages about yourself. Just a few sentences about your experience, about your general, the things you've done at the job. Just don't write too much, but make sure everything is on your LinkedIn profile. Also, another thing I see a lot of LinkedIn profiles is that people seem to tag the wrong company they've worked at. As in, I've seen, in LinkedIn, when you work at a company, it will give you that, like the logo in the experience section. Some people tag the wrong company, so their logo is just a default picture of LinkedIn on LinkedIn there, which is weird, right? Why would you not make it? It just looks. It doesn't look. It's attention to detail, right? You want to make sure everything looks professional, sleek, it's aligned, because all these like 1% things make a difference. I know it's a cliche that doing everything 1% better leads to compound growth, but it does. It's just pure maths. And if you do these things and make your profile just a little bit better, slowly, and a bit better than other people, it'll make all the difference. So have a nice, clean LinkedIn, post on LinkedIn, like I said earlier, document your learning, and you'll have way more opportunities come to you than if you just didn't have these things. And make sure everything your LinkedIn aligns your CV, everything your CV aligns your GitHub, and the three work in tandem, or unison, I should say. So that way everything is correct. And another thing is, I've written here, no matter what you do not put aspiring data scientist in your LinkedIn title. You are a data scientist. I did a degree in physics. I haven't studied physics at all for the past 4 years. I am still a physicist, right? Even though I haven't, done worked in physics or done anything related to physics, I still am a physicist because I studied it and I class myself as one. Same way as you. You're studying data science. You are a data scientist. Just because you don't work as a data scientist does not mean you're not one. So have that identity. Say you are a data scientist or you are a machine learning engineer, and use that. Get the word aspiring, because you're not aspiring, you are one, and you're going to get a job as one. If I got unemployed tomorrow, and I will still be a machine learning engineer. Just because I'm unemployed, I'm still that profession no matter what. So yeah, get the aspiring bit out of your LinkedIn profile. It's just, I hate when people say that, not because in a mean way, but because you're limiting yourself and how you think, right? I know this sounds like what it's like, not like what's the word? Like this, it's wishy-washy things, but it's the identity change and the limiting beliefs you have. If you just say you are one, you're not aspiring. So that's the main thing. So clean LinkedIn, clean GitHub, clean CV. That's all you need. Now, when it comes to applications as well, you should ideally, I know in the UK it's a bit different, but focus on referrals. Referrals make such a big difference. I think I watched a video where if you have a referral, you're like 700%, 800% more chance of getting the first interview or something, like a crazy stat like that. And you should just try and get as many referrals as possible. People reach out to me and ask for referrals. Obviously, I don't just give referrals to everyone because I need to know them. Kind of got to have some sort of communication, some sort of trustworthiness there, because I don't want to just refer people for no reason at all. But if you reach out to people on LinkedIn, in your network, in your immediate family, I promise you, someone you work with or someone you know or someone they know will have a job at the company you want to work for. And you don't lose anything by messaging them and asking them for a referral. Obviously, don't go out there and say, can you refer me to the job? Speak to them a bit, learn more about them, learn about the role, just be an interesting person, and then ask for a referral. If they say no, they say no, but you don't lose anything out of it. And you'll get rejected most of the time. That's like the whole thing in life. You just get rejected. You get rejected way more than you have any success. But the point is, you have to go through those rejections in order to give you that edge over other applicants. So message as many people as you can. Obviously, don't be just blunt and be like, can you refer me? Start a conversation, speak to the people, but reach out, send 10, 20 messages a day. That's the numbers you got to go for. And those referrals will give you such a better like return on investment if you just simply apply for the jobs. Obviously, you can still apply for jobs no matter what, but using referrals to your advantage is by far the best way I recommend you go about it. So to get referrals, like I said, look at people you know, look at who they know. If they don't know anyone, then you can just look out for people who are like alumni at your university, or just cold message people and say, "Can I learn more about this job?" and just speak to them. People love talking about themselves. They do. They love talking about their job. So if you just get to speak to them more about it, get their input, and then slowly build that rapport, build that kind of like friendship, and then ask for a referral, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, and I recommend that to most people. It's just putting in the reps, putting in the time, messaging people. Like I said, it's going to take some time, but it's really, really worth it. So I 100% just think you should do these things. And the final point is, when it comes to applications, is you have to apply for loads. The same way you have to message loads of people to get referrals, you have to apply for loads and loads of jobs. It really is a numbers game. Everything in life, that's like if you want to do well, it's a numbers game. People may say like hate that, but everything's a numbers game. Making YouTube is a numbers game. Not every video is going to be a viral video. Writing blog posts, not every blog is going to be doing well. It's just playing the game long term, and eventually the odds will just turn out in your favor, right? I know it's like a Hunger Games quote, but it is true. You have to play the games. It's like the whole thing with if you've heard of Black Swan events, where essentially to get these like really extreme or outlier results, there's a few ways you can do it, and one of them is just being consistent, and just the more you try, the more outlier result chances you'll get. It's like a probability distribution, right? And the more you sample from that probability distribution, the more likely you are to get an outlier result. It's just pure statistics. So when I was applying for data science jobs, before I got my first graduate role, I applied for over 300 jobs, 300 at least. And albeit some of them were not exactly what I wanted to go for, and maybe some of them I didn't actually want to take in the end. But what I'm trying to say here is that I had to apply for loads of jobs. I was rejected loads of times. I went through loads of interviews, only to miss out on the last stage. And even to this day, I still go through a lot of interview stages, and I miss out on the final round because someone's better than me. And that's totally fine. It doesn't bother me, because I understand it's just a numbers game, and you have to play the odds long term. So I see loads of people kind of get stuck at this step, but to get a job, you have to apply for jobs. There's no way around it. You have to do the thing, which is applying for roles, getting referrals, doing all these things. You have to do it, and you're much better off applying for jobs when you don't feel ready, than just continually learning, building more projects, building your portfolio. You have to actually do the thing to get a job, which is apply for the roles, because you just have to do it. And I've seen a lot of people I coach and I mentor, where I ask them how many jobs have they applied for, and they said like 10. I'm like, well, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, there is cases where people apply for a few and get it, but they are in a minority. They really are. Most people apply for loads, at least at the beginning. Once you're in the industry, it's very different. You can be more selective. You're more serious. You know what you're doing. Companies are more serious as well about who they like reach out to, or like move through the interview process. But at the entry level, it's kind of like it's like a rat race. And what you have to do, you have to just carry on going, carry on applying, and apply for loads of jobs. It's not embarrassing to say I applied for over 300 jobs. I applied for so many roles, and like I said, I only got I think 3-4 offers maybe, and like I said, it just took me a long time to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you have to take that attitude towards it. So numbers game. It literally all is about is putting in the work and effort, and eventually you will get that job. And that's all you have to do with applications. And the kind of last section of applying for entry-level positions is the interviews. Now, I'm not going to go into all the interview steps because I have videos on this and there's so much information out there about interviews. But in general, the interviews are, you have an intro interview, basically to make sure that you actually know what you say you do in your CV and you're not just like lying. You have a technical interview, which can either be a case study, a coding challenge, pair programming, like a technical hands-on. Then you have a behavioral interview, just like how you work. Basically, your culture fits. You don't operate in a way that doesn't align with the values of the company, which is actually really important. And you'll have a theory interview, normally about machine learning theory, all the basics. Now, in general, for interviews, just prepare. That's the main thing. You'd be surprised. Like, I spoke to a recruiter, a hiring manager, And they were like, yeah, I'm surprised about how many people do not prepare for a role here. And that's mind blowing to me because I prepare for every single interview. And you don't need to prepare so much, but just know the company, know the role, know the general financials, know what they're currently working on, know their place in the market. Just know enough about the company. Read on their Wikipedia for like an hour or two. That's all you need to know, and have a few notes. Like I said, about why you want to work there specifically, their values, their cultures, the job role, exactly why you want to do it, what you're most interested in about the job role, and also come prepared with questions. So prepare questions about the role, about the company, about how you work in a company. Because, like I said, it's just this preparation and this like optics looks really good because it shows that you're keen and you're willing to be there. And with that said, the worst thing I've seen in interviews, I don't actually think it's what people say, it's how you say it that makes a difference. So be animated. Look like you actually want to be at the interview. There's so many people I've interviewed who just are a bit like, that was a terrible example, but they were just so monotone, didn't seem that like they really wanted to be there, had no interest, and it really makes interviewing them quite difficult because it's the back and forth is slow. You have to think about it this way. Someone is taking an hour outside their workday. Imagine if they're like a senior staff machine learning engineer. They're taking loads of time out of their workday to interview you, and they're busy, they're stressed. They come in and they get someone who's just not very interested in being there, doesn't really want to be like charismatic and just be more, like I said, interested in being in the interview. It's very difficult and it's just a bit annoying. So you want to be animated, just like I said, just make an effort and look like you really want to be there because it goes a really long way. And these like really untangible or intangible things are really important, more than people think. And like I said, it's more how you say things as opposed to what you say in a lot of scenarios. Obviously, you can't get away with murder. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if you just like say things passionately, sound like you're interested, be enthusiastic, it goes a long way. Like these are the main things of interviews, I'd say. In terms of like other things to prepare, obviously lead code problems, just practice lead code. It is that simple. Don't overthink it. For coding problems, just get some practice. I do mock interviews. If you're interested in doing a mock interview with me, I have a link in the description below that we can discuss this about. If you want to do theoretical interviews, just brush up on your theoretical knowledge. There's no like secret to doing well in interviews. Obviously, there's a few tips I can give you, and I can give you like a whole guide on interviews. And to be honest, if I was going to cover every single interview, it would take me ages to do in this video, which I don't want to make it like hours long, just like an hour. So yeah, but those are the main bits just of interviews. Just prepare for interviews, be charismatic, have questions. Make sure you understand the interview process, the things you need to know for each one, and you're not going to do well in every interview. That's just a brutal truth. And I personally like to use interviews as a learning experience at the beginning. So everything if I went to an interview and I didn't know something, I went and learned that thing because that's the best way to learn, getting live feedback. You can prepare all you want, but you won't know what you don't know until you're in an interview and the interviewer tells you like, oh, what is this? And you don't know it. Like, I remember one of my first interviews I had for data science, I didn't know what dictionaries were in Python, right? And I had a question, like a LeetCode problem on dictionaries, and I didn't know what dictionaries were. So I went and learned dictionaries as a result of it. It really was that simple. And I think some people overcomplicate this learning process. It's literally applying for loads of, if I was going to break down everything I just discussed is, obviously have the required educational background, if you can. Obviously that's hard for some people. Then it's upskilling, so learn, take a few courses, learn, implement. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Learn the basics. Don't get shiny object syndrome and look at all the fancy new things in AI because you don't need them. Then have a nice CV, have a nice LinkedIn, have a nice GitHub that's populated, it's clean, and it's all kind of works in sync with each other. Then apply for loads of jobs. Don't be picky about the jobs you apply as you can. Try and get as many referrals as possible. And then when you get to the interviews, just understand that interviews are a game, and you've got to learn the game, and you've got to get the reps in, and it's a skill. You're not going to pass every interview. Not every interview is going to be amazing. That's fine. The point is you get better over time, and you iterate, and you learn, and you implement things. And the only way you know the full kind of process is that by doing it loads of times, like applying for loads of jobs, interviewing loads, doing more practice, going back, documenting your learning. You've got to there's a common thing like that, the path to success is not linear. It's very much like a wobble. And that's the thing you got to think about here. You're going to have days where you're going to take an interview and you're going to fail. You're going to have days where you take an interview, you do really well, and you're going to go up. You're going to have days where you may post a bit of content and it'll do terrible, but then sometimes some content will do really well. The point is you're going to trend from bottom left to top right. That's where you want to go. And you only get that by putting in time, putting in the effort, putting in the numbers, and almost like don't focus on the outcome. Focus on doing these steps I've told you in this video, and you'll increase your chances. And the main thing is just what to do. I've had this a lot in a lot of things I've done, is that you may watch more courses, you may listen to more people, but you really know what you need to do. Most people know the exact things they need to implement in order to get to where they want to be. They just procrastinate it. So this video is an hour long. If you do everything in this video, you're already 80% of the way there. There's a few things most times we need to fine tune, and I can work with you on that. Like I said, I do coaching calls, coaching programs. Like I said, if you're interested in those, there's links in the description below to book calls with me. And for those like extra 20% of things, that's where you would need someone like me to work with you to, better align with your profile and increase your chances in certain areas more. But like what I'm saying is, just implementing everything in this video will get you most of the way there. Just do these things and you're already there, right? Action is the best way. Don't overanalyze, don't overcomplicate it. Don't get scared. Just do it brick by brick, step by step, and eventually you get to that final goal you want to be at. And there's different paths. Something I haven't touched upon this video is that you can become a data analyst first or a software engineer first, then move on to data science, then software engineer. There's so many different routes you can take. And in this video, I've assumed you want to go straight to data science, but there's other ways of doing it. You can become, like I said, data analyst first, which is a bit easier to do than data science, then move on. You become a software engineer first, then become a machine learning engineer. There's so many paths, and all roads lead to Rome, as they say, and one's not better than the other. It's all about just doing what you think is best for you in that point in time, and what is the most feasible route. Finances, background, education, the need for a job, how quickly you want to move through the ranks. And everyone's different, but in general, these are steps you should follow, like I said in this video, and that'll get you most of the way there. And the main thing is just keep learning. Like, even if you get your first job, carry on. Keep developing your skills, keep learning areas outside. Then when you have that first job, then that's when you can learn things like reinforcement learning and really specialize and tailor your career in that direction. But you don't have to rush this process. You don't have to rush your career to get to exactly where you want to go. You can go, instead of going from A to Z, you can go A, B, C, D, do the whole alphabet journey before you get to the end. So, I hope this video has been useful. If you really want more advice, I have a newsletter where I give more advice on career tips and breaking into the field. I also, like I said, offer coaching programs, which is all linked in the description below. So if you want more tailored advice, then I highly recommend you reach out to me and we can discuss options, programs, calls, things like that. It's like I offer a range of services. Just let me know what you're interested in and I'm happy to work with you. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a comment if you got this far, because I'm curious to see who watched an hour-long video on brutally unfiltered data science machine learning advice, because you're a real one. And I'll see you in the next video.